Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so pleased to be standing here today, taking you through the Captain's Choices version of the Kangaroo Route. A good morning to those joining us in Australia, and there are guests from overseas as well. So whatever time of the day it is to you, I'm just really pleased you're able to join us for this webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, this itinerary has been a long time in the making. Why would Captain's Choice go out with an adventure to try and replicate the Kangaroo Route? Well, it stretches back to Captain's Choice being founded on the back of a Qantas charter tour. So that happened in 1994 when Phil Asker, the founder of Captain's Choice, chartered a Qantas 767 and took in the best destinations of Asia and Africa. And throughout our 30 years now with Captain's Choice, we've chartered over 100 different aircraft from Qantas, and we've taken them to all corners of the globe. But yet we have never replicated the original Kangaroo Route. And there she is, the Lockheed Constellation that was first flown in 1947. And whilst there was air traffic already going to Europe prior to 1947, it wasn't until 1947 that Qantas flew from Sydney to London in their own right. And that is, of course, the famous Kangaroo Route. 28 passengers over 4 days back in 1947. So you could imagine the time that they spent on this aircraft, and so different to how we find the aircraft today. The itinerary itself that we are creating is slightly different than the original 1947 Kangaroo Route. There are some limitations that we must adhere to now, but we will be operating the Kangaroo Route utilising a Qantas A330-300. So just a few more than 28 guests. As a matter of fact, this aircraft has a seating configuration of 28 business class seats and 267 economy class seats. Be assured, we won't be selling all those economy class seats. I'll come to that in a minute. But as you can see, the itinerary, the original itinerary there in the blue line, in the red line, I do apologise, is the original Kangaroo Route, and we are taking in most of the destinations. We are obviously travelling from Calcutta to Colombo on our itinerary because we simply can't travel from Calcutta to Karachi because the two governments don't allow direct flights. And of course, Tripoli, which was part of the original Kangaroo Route, unfortunately, we can't visit that part of the world at this time. But rest assured that the focus is still on the nostalgia of this famous tour. As a matter of fact, I mentioned to the team here in the office why I'm so passionate about this is I came from the Netherlands to Australia effectively on the Kangaroo Route in the early 80s. It was well known within Europe that travelling via Asia on Qantas is part of the Kangaroo Route. So very excited to be in a position to talk about this wonderful one-off tour. And I make that very clear, folks. This is a one-off tour that we will be operating in February next year. Now, I said to you, slightly bigger aircraft than the original, of course, with 267 economy class seats. Ladies and gentlemen, I prefer to call it superior economy because we will only be selling half the economy class seats. So in all cases, you're going to have a spare seat next to you. You're going to have a window or you're going to have an aisle seat. We'll move people around. We'll have a grand time. This is unlike any other air trip that you've been on or flight you've been on. There won't be fighting for overhead lockers. There won't be asking people, you're sitting in my seat. This is a grand tour where one family travels together with a maximum of 160 guests in total from one continent to another continent via some terrific stops along the way. We've ensured that the aircraft itself, business class catering throughout, hand-selected wines from all over the world. And as a matter of fact, we're talking to a winery at the moment in Western Australia, Margaret River, where the gentleman that started the winery actually flew his biplane in 1990 along the Kangaroo Route and then started a winery. Beautiful label with the biplane on the actual wine label. We're going to see if we can get that on board. This is how passionate we are about bringing to life this grand venture that is the Kangaroo Route. Seat rotation will take place. We find this it's done incredibly well for us in the past with Captain's Choice. You get to meet new people along the way, and especially solo travellers who are very much welcome. About 30% of our travellers are solo travellers. What a grand way to have different seating allocation, different parts of the aircraft, be it front, back, middle, exit row, so on and so forth. The opportunity to meet other people is always there. And for those that are really querying about, wow, that's a long way to travel in economy class, and I realise economy class may not be the preferred cabin for most, but unfortunately our business class cabin has sold out. But let me tell you just quickly about the economy class. Firstly, there's only one sector over 4.5 hours. So the beauty of chartering our own aircraft is that we get to choose our slot times, and in most cases we will be travelling over that lunchtime period. So as you can see there, the travel times 4.5 hours or less for every sector except Colombo and Cairo. That one is roughly between 8 and 9 hours, just depending on certain conditions. On that longer sector, don't be alarmed, because there's plenty of room, as I said, in the economy class cabin. And as a matter of fact, when we first released this tour, one of our favoured guests out of Perth called me personally on a Saturday evening and said, "Bas, please put me down for this tour." And I said, "Which class would you like?" She said, "I only travel in one class. That's the fun class in economy." So be assured, folks, we're going to have a fantastic time, irrespective of where you sit on the aircraft. And the aircraft is like a home away from home. Everyone comes together on the aircraft, talks about their stories, enjoys a little bit of lunch and a drink, and before you know it, we're in the next destination anyway. Now, the beauty of chartering our own aircraft is we obviously get to choose. I'm gonna just skip that slide if we can, and the next one, because I'm going to just talk about the benefits of the aircraft, and then we'll come back to why and what we do with Captain's Choice. The benefits of the aircraft are simple, folks. We get to choose our slot time. We take care of customs and immigration where we possibly can. Your baggage moves from one hotel room to the next hotel room as far as you're concerned, because we have a team of individuals behind the scenes that will take care of everything for you. So when you get to the airport, it's a simple case of just walking through a security screening and straight onto the aircraft. When we arrive at a destination, it's simply coming off the aircraft and you start your touring. Our team will take care of the rest as far as luggage immigration is concerned. Now, why travel with Captain's Choice? And I'll get you just to pop back a couple of slides there. Of course, we're genuinely all-inclusive. Now, we include absolutely everything. So all meals are included. Of course, all your transport's included. Pick you up with our limousine service at your home, take you to the airport, and likewise when you get back home as well. So that's all been taken care of. We've got some wonderful, exciting experiences for you. And I'll touch on some of the big ones, but there's plenty of small ones as well. But one thing I want to assure you is, as I said all along, we've operated over 100 charters with Qantas. We know how to operate charters using a big aircraft like this. Often when we talk about 160 guests traveling, people get quite nervous thinking, wow, that's a big group. But I can assure you, it's only on the aircraft and at our very exclusive dinners where we bring everyone together that you'll have the feeling of a big group. Otherwise, you're very much split into small groups at every destination. I'll talk about some of those experiences a little bit later on. We will also have a tour host team of at least 10. And why I say at least 10 is because we just want to make sure that we've got the right people travelling as part of the team. We've already secured one of Australia's finest arts and architectural specialists. We've also got a celebrity chef travelling with us. We've got, and who you'll meet in a moment, we've got Captain Greg Fitzgerald, who had a 35-year career with Qantas, travelling as part of our group, as well as our tour doctors. We'll have 2 doctors travelling on this occasion, and our travelling concierge. Our travelling concierge is, again, not only do we provide you with a number of set options for you as far as your touring program, to personalise your touring program, but there may be something that you want to do that we don't offer. And our travelling concierge will try and make that happen for you. A good example of our travelling concierge, last year on our South America by private jet, we had an author on board and the lady wanted to go to an exclusive bookstore just outside Buenos Aires. It was all arranged for her before she got there, driver waiting, took her to the bookstore and brought her back to the group. That's what our travelling concierge will do. If there's a restaurant that you particularly want to dine at or something like that, our concierge is travelling with us. We can look at it before we start the travel or whilst we're travelling. And of course, the Qantas staff and crew, and they play a huge part in making this tour an absolute success. As I said, we will be travelling as a group of 160. We will be a whole family, and that will include the Qantas staff because they stay with us the whole journey. So you'll get to really know all the cabin crew. They'll get to know you and what you like to drink, possibly. But you'll also get to meet the engineers and the crew, the air crew, so the captains on board as well. They'll come and join us for some dinners. They will be an essential part of bringing this to life. And behind the scenes, they're already working on ensuring that they've got various uniforms from the different decades in place to really ramp up the feel of this wonderful, wonderful journey. And of course, I've mentioned the home to airport transfers, but the accommodation. We've really selected some of the finest accommodation in every destination we go to, and you can look at them there. The one that you may not and does stand out a little bit is Downhall Estate, and it is a beautiful country estate in Essex, in London. I'll touch on that a little bit later on. You'll understand why we're using that estate for our whole group. But as I mentioned before, we take care of absolutely everything. The tipping, your luggage, as I said, we want you to enjoy this holiday. We'll do the work behind the scenes. So it is an A330 aircraft, 300 aircraft, as I mentioned before. And I just want to also point out that because we are only taking 160 guests, there's options for you as far as your luggage allowance is concerned. What we do ask is for people to try and take one bag, maximum 32 kilos, because we're going to have a whole team of people looking after them. But if you are extending in Europe or you want to be staying in Europe a little bit longer and want to travel with a couple of bags, we can actually leave a bag on the aircraft, actually in the cargo hold. So there's plenty of options. If they are some of your concerns, let us know and we can make the appropriate arrangements. But there's a big cargo hold in this aircraft. It usually can take nearly 300 guests. So the cargo hold is, there's plenty of room to look after your luggage there as well. As I mentioned, we will have a number of experts travelling with us and no greater than one of our current Captain's Choice Tour managers, Captain Greg Fitzgerald. I mentioned the 35-year career with Qantas, Greg, but we've been working on this together. How excited are you and what are you really looking forward to?
Well, hi, Bas, and good morning, everybody. Thanks for the introduction, Bas. And yes, we have been working on this for, I think it's 7 or 8 years. This was meant to be a one-off flight for the centenary of Qantas. And of course, Qantas was founded in 1920, and we all know what happened 5 years ago to prevent any flying around the world. So it's come to fruition. And just a little bit about myself. I did have a 35-year career in Qantas. I joined Qantas from an airline in New Guinea. And of that 35 years, I had 22 years on the 747, all variants of the 747, and 13 years on the 767. I was in management for many years. I was the head of pilot recruitment, the head of training on the 76, the head of training on the jumbo fleet, then the head of training in Qantas, and also the fleet manager and senior check captain on all those, both the jumbos and the 767. So my last title, I suppose, I had in Qantas was I was Director of Antarctic Operations, and that led me to become quite close friends with Bas. I'd known Bas from when they started chartering aircraft from Qantas 30 years ago, but of course, Captain's Choice sister company, Antarctic Flights, I was quite involved with, and hence I joined Captain's Choice as a tour manager in 2022 and have continued to be involved in getting this flight off the ground, so to speak. Bas mentioned earlier that Qantas actually started flying to Europe in 1935, and the big difference about then was we shared the route with British Imperial Airlines, and Qantas Empire Airlines only flew halfway, initially to Singapore, later to Karachi, but they didn't fly the route all the way to London by themselves. And that's why the 1947 Kangaroo Route is so important. When Qantas got the Lockheed Constellation, we were able to fly all the way from Sydney to London. And most people think that the word kangaroo route came from the fact that the flying kangaroo. Well, it's related, but in actual fact, it goes back to 1935 when it was 19 stops and 12 days, and it was hopping. And that's where the hops came in, and therefore it hopped like a kangaroo. So that's why it became known as the kangaroo route. And of course, next year, at the end of 2026, Qantas is hoping to go Sydney direct. Well, not hoping, they will be going Sydney direct London. So from 19 stops to direct at the end of 2026. So look, I'm really excited to be part of the project. It's taken a long time to get this far. I'll be along. My last duty on the Jet 747 with Qantas was to deliver as part of the crew the very last Qantas 747 after 50 years of service with Qantas to the Mojave Desert. I've also was the captain of the first civil aircraft into the Bali after the Bali bombings. I went to Wuhan during COVID for a rescue flight. I've done many charters for Qantas and many interesting things. And we're assembling a group of aviation people, mainly ex-Qantas captains, that will be able to tell you some stories about Qantas. But it's not all about aviation, as Bas said. There's many, many other things that are going to happen along the way. I'm really excited to be part of it.
Thanks, Greg. That's terrific. And absolutely, as Greg mentioned, we've got plenty of activities and exciting options in place for those aircraft enthusiasts. But likewise, we've got a number of touring options available for those that are a little bit more reserved and looking at doing something a little bit different. So as Greg mentioned, it's fantastic, isn't it? Hasn't Qantas come a long way to almost be flying directly from Sydney to London? But I think our itinerary is far more relaxed, far more comfortable, and a lot more fun. So let me talk about the experiences. So Greg mentioned the aeronautical experiences, and let me just throw a few out there for those that are really looking forward to that. Our welcome dinner in Sydney remains a well-guarded secret, but let me assure you, it will be an event to remember. In Singapore, we have VIP tickets to the trade day at the air show. So for those that are in Australia at the moment, in Avalon in Australia, we've currently got the show on here. But the air show is in February next year in Singapore, so we'll have VIP tickets for that. We will, and I'll mention this again later as part of the reason we're staying in that beautiful estate in Essex, is we will be having dinner. Our farewell dinner will be under the wings of the Concorde at the Imperial War Museum in the United Kingdom. So again, we've really picked some wonderful aeronautical experiences for those that thrive in that. But the best part is, as Greg mentioned, Greg will be traveling with us throughout the whole itinerary. There are certainly different air museums that we'll also travel to. And the one highlight I almost forgot, and I do apologise, is because we are travelling on an Airbus, Greg and the team at Qantas have managed to allow us to land at the Airbus factory, and so guests can have a private tour of the Airbus factory itself. For those that are not interested, there will be an alternative available for you, but I think that's a highlight, certainly travelling between Rome and London. But every day we will have exciting tours for you to choose from. Let's talk about some of the gala events. Firstly, as I mentioned, the Sydney welcome dinner remains a secret, will remain a secret, but I can assure you it's an event to remember. Gardens by the Bay in Singapore, one of the most beautiful installations anywhere in the world. We'll have a section privately closed for our group, and we'll have dinner amongst the gardens of the bay. We we will go to Calcutta, and let me assure you that if India, we've travelled to India as part of Captain's Choice many, many times, and when they say they're going to put on a gala, it will be an experience that you will not forget. So be assured that our one night in Calcutta will be absolutely fantastic. We have 2 full days, 3 nights in Colombo. That's really important because, you know, we are moving at a reasonable rate those first 2 or 3 days. So then 2 full days in Colombo. We've got full day tours, half day tours, cooking experiences, the opportunity to have lunch with some of the Sri Lankan cricketers. As a matter of fact, the World Cup, the 50 over World Cup is actually on in Sri Lanka at that time. So we're waiting for the schedule to come out and seeing what we can build into our itinerary to include the Cricket World Cup. But if you get the opportunity and you haven't been to Sri Lanka before, the day trip to Galle is just absolutely amazing. It's one of the best examples of a European-built fortified city that you'll ever see. You will see the famous fishermen on their stilts and, of course, the tea plantations throughout as well. But they will be 2 wonderful days before we then head over to Cairo. Now, Cairo is one of our mega destinations as far as Captain's Choice is concerned, and we've been working with these operators for nearly 20 years. So we do get access to the foot of the Sphinx. We get access to places that the general public simply don't get access to. I won't talk too much about it, but the dinner that we have amongst the pyramids of Giza is breathtaking. And everyone that goes just cannot stop talking about it. That's already lined up. That will be there for you. And of course, the Grand Museum, it's taken many, many years to open. As a matter of fact, it's not fully open yet, but we're hoping come closer to the time that all the installations are done. But be assured, we'll have some private viewing and some private touring in the Grand Museum as well. And then we head off to Rome. And Rome is going to be absolutely wonderful. You've got so many options to choose from in Rome. And we understand that most people have traveled to Rome before, have probably spent a number of days in Rome. But look at some of the experiences that we've got in place. They are very, very unique, as will be the dinner that we have at the Vatican Museum after hours, private, just for our group. And again, simply not accessible if you're traveling on your own. I talked about the wonderful stop that we'll have on our way to London in Toulouse at the Airbus factory. I'm really looking forward to that day, and I'm sure our aircraft enthusiasts will be as well. And then have a look at Downhall Estate. Typical, beautiful country estate in England. We'll have sole access to the estate just for our group. And of course, we've done that because we're much closer to the Imperial War Museum and Stansted Airport, where we will be landing the aircraft. Rest assured, we'll offer transfers back to London for those that want to fly back immediately or those that want to stay on. We are staying a little bit out of London in this beautiful estate, but that is so we can just really enjoy that farewell dinner, which will be a unique experience within itself. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm always available. I wouldn't say always, but I'm certainly available if you do have any more questions. Our team are very well versed on the itinerary, but there's always things that we're not 100% sure of. So please don't hesitate to ring, email the team, and certainly if you want to speak to me personally, I'll make the time available for you. I will open the floor for any questions. There's been a couple of questions that have come through again. Will we operate the journey in 2027? No, this is a one-off, strictly one-off. Places are going quick. So we're inviting you to make your booking as soon as possible. Our team are waiting to help you make that booking, but it is definitely a one-off event. It was always set up to be a one-off event as well. Another question that I've been asked, and I've been asked this several times, and I'm happy to report that the team has now got together a number of one-way airfares back from London to Australia. So we've equipped the team with a number of different airlines and the airfares available to us. We had to wait for those airfares to come into system range. And on a few occasions, we've actually gone back and said, can you do a little bit better? Because one-way airfares can be a little bit expensive. So the return airfare from Europe is not included in the overall price. But I say Europe because you are in Europe at the end of February. Coming into springtime, you may want to take the opportunity to stay a bit longer longer, so on and so forth. That's fine with us. We can still help you with the airfare out of whatever destination you wish, and we'll still obviously organise that final private car transfer to take you home as well, irrespective of how long you stay in London. Just checking if there's any more questions. Terrific. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I do want to thank you for your time. It's been a great honour for me to be able to put such an itinerary together with our wonderful team and with the team of Qantas, because as I said, I have a personal connection with the Kangaroo Route, as I'm sure many, many people do. And I think it's fitting what Greg said, that Qantas have now or are nearly there to be able to deliver a non-stop flight from Sydney to London, where we're going back to when they first operated it in 1947 and replicating that wonderful journey along the way. I hope you'll join me on this terrific trip. I will be part of the team and I can't wait. And please, like I said, if there are any further questions or you have any hesitations, please don't hesitate to email our team or call our team. And if you want to speak to me personally, I'll be available. Thank you for your time today.